Anything else you're excited about going into 2025 for season two?
Um, yeah, yeah. I think that there are some specifics that I'm really curious about, kind of looking into. So think, the conversations we had with Chad Brown, Adrian Kaler, Dan Tocchini. They have a way of thinking about the inner workings of the mind of a leader, of their psychology, that I think is really interesting. I think we're going to probably look for opportunities to explore that further. Um, I do a lot of my work in servant leadership with my Chick-fil-A background. So I think there's a lot of servant leadership conversations we can have that are
Mm.
super interesting. Um, I think that there are some global leaders that are doing work outside of the US that you have a lot of exposure to. I have exposure to some of them. And I think bringing them in, kind of like the Michael Christensen episode, he's working heavily with the team in France,
Mm.
and bringing to bear leadership styles and philosophies that maybe aren't as common in the US, or just not the way that the personality of our nation approaches leadership. I think that can really enhance our thinking. And so I'm looking forward to bringing some of those more international perspectives in. And, I think that we've, because of our network, have had a lot of, um, kind of Chick-fil-A conversations, just because we share that background. And
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to continuing to have those, but also just to expanding to some other companies that we're familiar with, and have good relationships in. And people can really take the cultures of those companies and inform our listeners with, um, just different ways of thinking. And so that's what I would say. I'm excited for just different types of perspective.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, it is. It's gonna be a fun year. It's gonna be a fun year. I feel like, already have a pretty good list sorted of some people for this next year to be learning from, and different backgrounds and perspectives. And every guest that we've had, I've learned from. Which is really exciting thinking about next
Mhm.
year. And I am in particularly probably excited for us to continue to find out a little bit more. You mentioned this earlier, like our voice.
Yeah.
We have talked about it and talked about our core competencies and how we kind of approach it. But I think just continuing to figure out how does the daily leader best serve those that are listening to us. How do we leverage that in a really good way that is good for us and it's good for our listeners? And I'm also excited. Maybe next year will be the year the wives actually listen to the podcast for the first time ever. You I'm not
I
holding my
want to
breath for it,
believe.
but
I want to
you know,
believe.
yeah,
You know.
probably not. Probably not. They would be bored and on Instagram in about 2 minutes.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's been a great year, man. It's been a great year. Any parting words you want to leave our listeners with?
The only thing that I was really thinking about, from an encouragement, or like a be inspiring, rah rah standpoint, is just like, look, if you have an idea, just do it, just try. And if there's any credit that's due us, it would just be, hey, we had an idea and we went for it. And I think about, like, what would the world look like if there was no Joe Rogan, no Huberman Labs, no Chris Williamson, no Tim Ferriss. You could insert a bunch of other names in there, you know, of people who are podcasting and kind
Yeah,
of out in the
all on the
content
same
creation world.
level we are. We're on that level too. So, anyways, continue.
Right. Yeah. Well, they'll they they have we have to give them something to aspire to.
Sure.
And um and so I just think it's just worth trying.
Mm.
It's worth trying whatever you feel an ambition for. And it's worth failing. If we never make a podcast again, I still feel like, man, that was a really great learning experience. And I think it was valuable for a handful of people who were consistent in listening. And hopefully we had a positive influence on their life and their leadership. And more importantly, the people that they serve, right? They were actually better leaders because they got exposure to some of the folks we interviewed, and they learned some things. So go for it, do it. uh, fail hard, whatever it is you need to do. That's my encouragement.
Fail hard is a good one. I like that. If you're gonna go, fail hard, man. Just give
Yep.
it. You know, it's you've spent enough time thinking. Now go do. You know, you've thought it out. So just go do it. Or if you haven't, just go start to think about it and then go do it.